Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, APM and Performance Testing. Today is the focus around Dynatrace and Neoload. So we'll give everybody one more quick minute before we get started, but thank you for joining. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, the webinar today is focused on APM and performance testing, and today we'll be highlighting the concepts through the use of tools with Dynatrace and Neoload. So everything is being recorded, and you will receive an email with a link when it is available within the next following days after the webinar. For the Q&A session today, it will be handled electronically. In the Zoom panel, you'll see a Q&A on the interface, and you'll be able to enter your questions there. And our presenters will address them during the Q&A portion of today's webinar. So our presenters today are myself, Todd Williams. I'm the account executive for APM sales here at Oracle, but doing the bulk of the presentation will be Alex Darby from our APM services lead position, as well as Alex Weiss, who is a solutions architect. So, starting from with a quick Oracle overview before we dive into the content around APM and performance testing. This is being brought to you by Oracle. We are a DevOps-focused consulting and technology company based here in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been in business for over 17 years and helping customers deliver higher quality software on an ongoing basis. Started off focused mostly on testing, and over the years have developed to be a comprehensive DevOps shop. So you'll see that DevOps is at the cornerstone of everything that we do. That's where a lot of our conversations start with our customers. So no matter where they are on their DevOps journey, whether they're just getting started, having to course correct, work through educational and adoption internally, whatever it might be, we have the consulting services to help drive that adoption of DevOps internally. And then we've also got specific practice areas that support the development of DevOps through technology. So today you'll see that we'll be bringing in the APM and the continuous testing bubbles through the use of technology. And so in addition to having the DevOps consulting piece, we supplement that in the execution of DevOps through our partnerships and alliances. So there's a wide range of tools that we're able to produce and support for our customers based on their overall needs and finding the tool that best meets those needs. So again, today we'll focus on Dynatrace and Neoload and the integration that they have in helping performance testers leverage APM in their day-to-day practices. And within that, being able to leverage, again, APM performance testing to see value in things such as getting a granular view into your system's performance under load, being able to drive down to code-level issues to fix issues faster. That's something that Dynatrace does a great job of. It's one of their core value propositions. And ultimately, we want to reduce the issues that make it to production, and those issues that do make it to production, we want to drive down the mean time to resolution. So those are the focus areas that you'll see today. And with that, I will kick it over to Alex Darby to get into the presentation.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate that. So, so here we have kind of an outline of Dynatrace. Dynatrace sets itself apart from the competition with a focus on the enterprise cloud. It was originally they started off with Appmon, and then they built Dynatrace from the ground up with the enterprise cloud in mind, and really made a pretty special tool with that. One of the great things about this tool is it's one agent. For those of you that have this already, you're very familiar with it. And basically, you're able to instrument your entire stack including applications, machine metrics, synthetics, browsers, and so on, with this one agent. So it makes installation very easy, instrumentation very easy, to be able to do monitor your application and the topology around the application. With this, it automatically will map out your topology in what's called the smartscape of your environment, and lets you see who's talking to who, and see the end-to-end mapping of what's going on in the environment when load is being run. Dynatrace is also very advanced in what is called its AI ops, with the cognitive engine, AI engine named Davis. They learn what is normal for your application and identify anomalies automatically, right? So there's no manual thresholds that you have to set or alerting that you have to set up. Davis understands what's normal for your application and will tell you when something is out of whack, and be able to give you a root cause analysis from those detected problems without any additional configuration. So everything's completely automated. It's very light configuration that goes on with Dynatrace. So very, very highly automated tool. Next slide.
So, folks, one of the things that Dynatrace by itself offers to its customers is the ability to constantly monitor and analyze the situation happening inside the application infrastructure or multiple application infrastructure pieces, and the coordination between those nodes and between those components. However, the additional value proposition that it has for performance testing is the ability to provide the clarity and visibility for the testers to understand when something happens as part of the performance test, that there's a way to actually correlate between the synthetic traffic that is being created by the performance testing tool and the responses that application components are showing and exhibiting, and provide the ability to see the issues right away correlated with those components of performance tests that are creating those issues. And so specifically, it addresses the automation part of it, so ability to cross-connect between the performance tool and APM in one environment to provide the correlation between the beginning and the end of the test, the transactions that are actually defined as part of the performance test, and the responses of the application components that are presented within Dynatrace. It is also something that is going through the self-service, where everybody pretty much is empowered by the combination of these tools to become a performance engineer, not only a person who creates the load, but also who is capable of analyzing it and has the complete visibility. So you have the ability to bring the data from Dynatrace into Neoload to correlate between application performance and the infrastructure utilization components. And on the Dynatrace itself, you have the ability to push the content from Neoload or from performance tools using the Dynatrace API to actually mark beginning and the end of transactions, mark the beginning and the end of the test, create those events, and also push in something like an anomaly, which is a term that is defined in both Dynatrace and Neoload. But that anomaly is going to be different. It's kind of like adding the piece of a vocabulary to your Dynatrace, which might see multiple different requests as independent transactions. But once you're combining those requests within performance test into a single transaction, then sending that identification to Dynatrace, which now will see all those requests as a single transaction and will measure and be helpful in analyzing the issue with the transaction response time is going to be very, very helpful. This is something that can help with different initiatives, either moving to cloud from monolith to microservices, ability to test API level of those microservices. So that basically means that even if your application is not entirely ready and it is architectured through microservices, some of those things can be tested independently. And of course, both of them are available either as cloud components or as on-premise. Of course, the whole thing, the automation, is not just done for the sake of automation, but it is to speed up the delivery mechanisms and not allow components that were developed and the code that was developed and checked in to be stalled in testing. And so the combination of both Neodis and Dynatrace can help you automate the delivery pipeline and basically allow you to kick off the tests in Neodis as part of your CI/CD pipeline, and then create gauntlets and kind of like gateways that will basically check if the code test passed. Then it continues down the pipeline, and if it doesn't, then it can go back. And there's also, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, how you can compare between different builds and basically provide reporting on the quality of delivery and quality of development.
Excellent. Thanks, Alex. So when you install Dynatrace, it automatically monitors all of the transactions, hosts and services. And Neoload, each time you start a test, it tells Dynatrace when it was started, what tool started the test, like it was Jenkins or something that actually kicked off the test, and it gives you a link back to Neoload. In this context, you can use Dynatrace to find out the hotspots of what's going on during the performance test. And then, of course, with continuous testing, Dynatrace can see which test ran and do a full hotspot comparison and compare builds. It all crunches the data for you automatically and lets you know if you have problems and where those problems are coming from, and being able to see the comparison between the different runs and see where your hotspots are, which is basically where your problem areas. So that's pretty much this slide. Yeah, full stack hotspot comparison, absolutely.
So
with this here, go ahead.
Go ahead now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for the you get a single dashboard view here in Dynatrace, and with that you get the integration. You can see Neoload metrics and Dynatrace data side by side, and you can use a dashboard to see side by side Neoload metrics and Dynatrace metrics together, which allows you to be able to monitor the test in Dynatrace if you want to do that. So that way you have more access to see what's going on as the test is occurring. Go ahead, Alex.
So what you guys see here is in the green square. These are the metrics that are pushed from Neoload into Dynatrace, and when you put them together on the same dashboard, again allows you to recognize that if you have all of a sudden a traffic increase, it's not because something is wrong, but the test is actually happening, and that helps a lot whenever your APM team, NOC environments, are actually looking at that. So they might not jump the gun. Usually they will be monitoring differently the production environments and staging environments, but seeing them all together in the same dashboard helps a lot. And so just to highlight the fact that you see on the same dashboard here the Neoload metrics in the green and Dynatrace data in the blue all together. And then the same type of correlation can be done backwards, right, from getting the data from Dynatrace and bringing it into Neoload. And at this point, what we see here is the Neoload Web, which is the SaaS version of Neoload, not necessarily on-prem. But what it shows here, it shows the transaction and the task correlated with Dynatrace data, which is, in this case, that's infrastructure utilization. So we're looking at CPU usage compared to transactions and utilization of the users. So Neoload metrics versus Dynatrace data. So the automatic root cause detection is essentially happening through Neoload pushing the anomaly rules, which are defined within the configuration of Dynatrace API integration within Neoload, and Dynatrace itself, the detection of the issues. So the Neoload can tell Dynatrace, what you're seeing right here, that's an anomaly. I'm telling you that's an anomaly, something like response time of this transaction is higher than, and then you can put in the value of SLA that is something, that is going to be set within the test environment. And then from that moment, once that anomaly and that problem appears inside Dynatrace, you can go and perform the analysis of why that happened. So that's the power of it. You don't have to go and scheme through your APM solution, its timeline, all multiple services that appear on the map, so you don't need to go and figure out which one started first. It allows you to float the problem all the way to the top and then drill down to the root cause.
Yeah, so traditionally, load testing has been sort of a black box kind of testing. You just basically, you're getting the information that the testing tool is bringing in to you, and that's pretty much all you're going to get. But when you add an APM tool like Dynatrace into the mix, you're going to see full end-to-end what's going on with your testing and how the application is performing, and what's going on with third-party services, what's happening with databases, and really be able to make an educated, informed decision about where things are coming from by what Dynatrace is telling you during the test, rather than just looking at CPU monitor and average response time and how memory is doing, those kinds of things, which are also important. But this gives you a much more deeper dive into the code and into how things are interacting with one another.
So, and then the conversation moves into, okay, so we know how things are happening within the testing processes. We get additional clarity by adding and utilizing APM within our testing process. How does that help us to not stop our continuous integration and continuous deployment? And as I mentioned before, the ability to create a test and push the context into APM solution allows that APM solution to also understand and analyze the differences and float those differences to the top and saying like, well, I see that there was a test before and there is a test now, and the test before was passing, but this one doesn't. And so what it can do, it can raise a flag immediately and basically tell the continuous deployment engine that the pipeline needs to stop and the code needs to go back and be fixed. And in addition to that, of course, it provides the information to supply as artifacts for opening a bug on performance, whether this is a code problem or it's a configuration issue. And in case the test does pass, then it's also the same kind of decision-making mechanism which allows you to move into production in case the test passes. And that speeds up incredibly the delivery speed and delivery velocity, because there is no waiting point. There is the only person that the system is going to wait for is going to be the developer, who will need to get this as a piece of his backlog, work on the issue, fix it, check it in, and then the system will continue running and retest it. And once it's fixed, it is going to move into production. And once in production, of course, Dynatrace and ABM is continuing to provide value by now creating that similar language and the same language for operation folks, the ones that are running the application, and the folks in development. So on one side, the folks in production and operation have significantly higher confidence because they were given metrics that they are their metrics. They're all the same language. And if the application has issues, then the analysis artifacts and triaging artifacts are the same in production and in pre-deployment and in testing processes. So a lot of things can also be auto-remediated depending on what kind of problem that is, depending if it's a configuration or a code, and the triage MTTR time is significantly lower. So, and that is done through assistance, of course, of the performance tool throughout the entire process, right? So it creates the content that is, all the requests, all the performance, throughout performance tests that are sent to the application under test. It also assesses the results together with the additional information coming from APM, and then lights the green or the red light to continue forward. So a few words about the secret ingredients, how this whole thing works together. Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the one agent. That is definitely a secret ingredient with Dynatrace. Basically, one agent allows you to monitor your full stack monitoring, and you can do an automated rollout with it, and it's supported by things like Chef, Cloud Foundry, Kubernetes. It's really built with the enterprise in mind, since that's the future and that's where folks are heading. So, if you're in that realm or going towards that realm, Dynatrace is definitely a tool that is going to help enhance the monitoring of that. And then with that, we see the full stack and its relationships to each other. Once the one agent is installed on the different servers that you want to be able to monitor, and how those servers are interacting with one another through hosts and processes and services, and then going up to the application as a whole. And then we have, after that, we have the automatic tagging. So tagging is also something that's very powerful inside of Dynatrace, and the fact that you can enrich data with tagging, and you can help identify what is your tracking and grouping things together that are tagged the same way. So you have some auto tagging that happens with Neoload, and then you can also put in your own custom tagging if you want to tag data, and then you can pull tags from AWS, Google, Kubernetes as well. So with the APIs integration, you're sending load testing info to Dynatrace through APIs, and then Neoload takes the tags through the service, and you can see those dependencies. So you have the Smartscape topology to be able to help you to see those dependencies, and see the hosts and the processes as they are running during the test. And then Neoload is putting the tags on the services and the hosts as they go into Dynatrace, and then creates those anomaly rules. You create the anomaly rules based on those tags. So you're pulling in Dynatrace metrics into Neoload, and then you can react to Dynatrace anomaly detection through as the test is occurring.
All right. So kind of like to show you guys the main thing here is the strongest out-of-the-box bidirectional integration. So we're going to show you in a few seconds throughout the demo that configuring that integration is really a simple thing. It's a few clicks of a button within Dynatrace just to create and add those tags that will correlate with Neoload load test and allow, and also inside the Neoload itself, the configuration of integration with Dynatrace API is also pretty simple because it's pretty static, and I'm going to show that in a few minutes how easy that is. So getting the data from Dynatrace into Neoload, pushing the test context into Dynatrace from Neoload itself, and then presenting Neoload metrics in Dynatrace as well as its events, and allows pretty much analyzing and detecting anomalies and analyzing them right away. So now it's time for the demo. All right. So let me quickly show you guys what we're talking about. So first of all, what you guys see in front of you, I'm gonna start not from the end. I'm gonna start from the beginning of how we configuring it. So what are the things that we need, as we have discussed in this last 30 minutes? We need Neoload and we need Dynatrace. So let's start with the first ingredient, which is Neoload in this case. Configuration of performance test continues being the same. The only thing that is statically added is going to be a few configurations that we are pulling from Neoload Advanced Toolbox. And here you got Dynatrace part. And essentially you bring in those actions to your user path that is running a single user. It's like intervals of 30 to 35 seconds. So it pushes the information to Dynatrace at even intervals. So it provides it all the context that is needed. In the initialization, and so Dynatrace user path will have 3 parts: the initialize, the end, and the actions themselves. So we do the configuration, which is pretty simple. We just need to put in our SaaS ID and the token that is created within Dynatrace in order to allow Neoload to talk to Dynatrace. We put the same thing inside the end, and so that allows us to mark the event of starting the task and stopping the task inside Dynatrace. And then for the monitoring itself, we also just need to create the login information. And so automatically what happens, Neoload is going to instrument all the headers for the transactions in all other user paths with Dynatrace headers. And that allows Dynatrace to pull out those tags that correlate with Neoload transactions. And Dynatrace anomaly detection, that's the optional component. Here you're capable of sending, for example, response times and set up SLAs and say, okay, so I'm going to create an anomaly type performance, and if my transaction is over 10 seconds, and that value can be anything pretty much that you set up your SLAs for, if Neoload detects the transaction response time is higher than the value here, it is going to push that anomaly into Dynatrace. And so besides the pacing that I mentioned before, in the runtime, we're going to have our transaction response times, and that's going to be under the runtime graphs for actions and our transactions that we're going to run with. But then it pulls in the data like we showed before, the external data. That's going to be for every service that is instrumented automatically by one agent, so you can see that all these are running on the same machine in this case. So for each one of them, we can get automatically all the infrastructure utilization metrics, and we can pull them into Neoload and correlate between the transaction response times and these metrics. And that's the part within the Neoload itself. Neoload Web has also the same type of graphs. They just present them a little bit differently, and you can see this within test results. So that's the view that you have seen throughout our presentation. So right now the test can stop running, and you got all the results in here at the bottom, and you can look through the graphs. And so when you switch gears to Dynatrace, then it starts with a dashboard. And so what we got here, you can of course configure the time span for what you want to look at. Usually if you're running a test, you're going to look at the test time rather than to aggregated view of multiple days, unless you're running a longevity test, a soak test, and it goes for more than just a few hours. But I'll let Alex drive this a little bit. Let me, Alex, share the control with you, so you could share the thought with folks. There you go. You got it.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Alex. All right. So basically, here we have our dashboard, and it just kind of gives you a high level of network status, host health, things of that nature. But one of the cool things is this little red box over here, right? So, and it's also over here. So 67 here is the problem. 65 over here is problems as well. We can dive into that, and that brings up the anomaly detection. Problems that are being found during your test. So we have our little tutorials here showing that things are kind of slow for these different services that are running through the environment during the test. So if we go over here to problem number 350 for easy travel customer front end, we can click on that guy, and then it dives us into the impacted services and what those particular problems are. So we can go here and click on this for the impacted service. And then we get down into our problem analysis. What's going on in consumption of service resources at 65%. Going down, we see, we can understand the dependencies. We can look at the service flow and what services are being interacted with this particular customer front-end service. As it goes over to Journey Service, that seems to be where it's spending most of its time, 72%. It's also dealing with authentication service and with 3 total services there, and then it ends up into the Easy Travel business section. So we can kind of see that flow as it goes through. Over here we have our response time, average, how many requests were happening, if any of those requests failed, things of that nature. So we can, so we're looking at that. We can also go down and dive into a little bit more for dynamic web requests. We can look at those. And that'll give a little more specific information about the transactions that are flowing through the environment. Top requests. So we see here, calculate recommendations. Let's see what's requesting this one. We can look at, we can create a chart out of this guy, see what's happening with that specifically. We can add a metric if we want to see, how is this related to, CPU, how is the CPU running during this particular part, and compare those two things together. So that's pretty much it from the Dynatrace side. Anything else that you wanted to add, Alex?
No, that's pretty much it. The tags themselves are can be configured within Dynatrace, so you can rely on auto tagging. You can also add the tags by yourselves and tag specific events that are coming from performance testing tool and float them up into the dashboard, so you can go right away to the particular issue. But that's pretty much it.
Cool. We want to go back to our presentation there, and I think Q&A is next.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
As a quick recap, yeah, I mean, again, this is, I know that we walked through the Dynatrace and Neoload piece today. It's one of the strongest integrations in the marketplace today between testing tools and performance monitoring tools. And so obviously, I hope that everybody that joined this afternoon was able to see the value of bringing APM into performance testing. It's certainly a valuable concept. It's still somewhat niche and new that we're seeing within our customer base, but I know that there have been customers out in the marketplace like Carnival, for example, that has leveraged this practice internally in their practices, and they saw, for example, a 68% reduction in critical production issues in their application. So there's certainly a lot of value to be had in leveraging this strategy. So feel free to reach out to Orsi if there's anything that we can do to help, whether it's question and answer, talking about best practices overall, or specifically with technologies as well. So that is it for the meat of the content today, but certainly want to open it up for Q&A portion. So first question, we are comes in saying, I'm seeing that we use Neoload here in the demonstration, but we actually use LoadRunner internally through Micro Focus. How would that fit into this best practice? What would that integration look like with Dynatrace?
So I'll take that one, Todd. The integration with Neoload and Dynatrace is pretty unique because it is out of the box. However, it's definitely possible to instrument Micro Focus, LoadRunner, and its flavors, Performance Center or StormRunner Load, to integrate with Dynatrace, and that's mostly thanks to the amazing API that Dynatrace has. So it's through instrumenting it through the scripts. Also, Dynatrace itself has a LoadRunner instrumentation tool. So it's basically a tool that you can feed your Vue.js scripts to it, and then it will instrument the script with the headers to push the content to Dynatrace and be able to see the information inside Dynatrace, as well as in StormRunner Load, for example, or in LoadRunner, there is a way for you to bring the infrastructure utilization metrics from Dynatrace into the performance tool itself. So it's going to require a little bit more work, and it's not going to be out of the box, but it's definitely doable, and it's not a huge effort.
Right. One other question that has come in around Dynatrace. What is the current version of Dynatrace?
So the current version of Dynatrace, the major version, is version 7, 7.03 to be precise. But that integration level with Dynatrace started at version 6.7 and further. Before 6.7, the integration was slightly less rich, so you couldn't have the anomaly detection option, but all the rest of the regular things like transaction information pushed into Dynatrace and events such as beginning at the end of the test it existed there already. So I'd say this integration is at least a year old for you guys, and that means that you can use it. And also, it's always a good practice to keep your tools up to date. And I have not seen a tool that is easier upgraded on the performance level than Neoload. It's really easy to upgrade it to the next version.
Yeah, that's kind of similar with Dynatrace. Dynatrace automatically upgrades throughout.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is that Neoload also preserves your projects from previous version, and there's a way for upgrade, and it upgrades them automatically to the new version. So wherever you have older version of Neoload, it creates a new repository and stores the project there and upgrades them automatically. So if you need to roll back, you can definitely do that with ease and continue working. It doesn't break your work.
Great. So we've got another question. If we can go into, can you please show us how to generate a report for a particular period in Dynatrace?
If you want to do that?
Yeah, I can show that. Let's see here. All right, so basically, you can go over here to reports, and you have a list of reports here. This is a list of all reports. If you want to look at service quality reports, you got the 17 there, or you can have an availability report, look at one of those there. But basically, they have a kind of a preset time frame, right? But you can change that. So you can go over here and you see the information that is available in the report, the Dynatrace score, user action, how many service calls were made, things of that nature. And then if you don't want this time frame, you want a different time frame, then you can choose from these time frames here to pick a different time frame that's in the list. And then you can share that information by just clicking the share button. So that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward.
Great, thanks, Alex.
Mm-hmm. As far as to answer your question, if you can create your own custom ones, I'll have to look into that and see if there's a way that you can do it. That's what I know of is the one that's system generated, but I can get back to you on that.
Great. And what other question? Yeah, I know Alex Darby. So for those on the line, and I'll let you take it over, Alex. But the question is, I know both AppDynamics and Dynatrace are used for the same purpose. What is the main difference between AppDynamics and Dynatrace, and which tool is the best?
That's a good question. It basically comes down to the needs of the business, right? So they both do the same thing in the fact that they monitor your application from a code level. You can see stack trace. They point you in the direction of root cause analysis. It really comes down to what your needs are. I would say that if you were a microservices shop, that Dynatrace probably wins that race as of today. But if you were more interested in powerful dashboards and BIQ information, that AppD wins that race today. So they're both very, very good products. Both high up on the Gartner report. They trade places all the time. So I wouldn't really say one's better than the other. It really just depends on your needs.
Yeah, and that's certainly, thanks, Alex, and that's certainly an area in which ORC can help advise. Obviously, we've got partnerships with both, so based on further discussion, and understanding of exactly the initiatives in your environment, we can make recommendations accordingly.
Absolutely.
So that is every question that we've got so far. There are a few. I know we've got about 15 minutes left still, so we can give people back some time of the day. But unless there are any other questions, but to close it out, again, like I mentioned, we're happy to help advise on anything APM related or performance testing or really DevOps related. Whatever it is, ORC is here to help, and always happy to have further conversations based on your team's specific initiatives and goals. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Again, we'll be sharing some more the recordings and the slides in a follow-up email after this webinar, but also feel free to reach out to me, Todd Williams. Again, I am our APM lead here at ORC, and I'm happy to have a conversation. So with that, I think that is everything. So thank everybody for joining the webinar today. Again, it's recorded, and you'll see the email with the link once it's available. Any other questions come up that we weren't, or any questions are out there that we weren't able to address, we'll be able to follow up. I know that there was one, Alex, that we were going to follow up on, so we can certainly do so there. But this concludes the webinar for today. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.